reality of nature and God and life is that things come and things go. They do not stay in your life. And you have to learn to accept the fact that it is a continuum that you're just a part of, and the things will be there and then they won't be there. So enjoy them and love them while they're there, and then be happy that they've gone someplace else. But you have to decide that you can't hold on to people, because the pain of losing somebody or losing something is your pain. It's not the pain of, that person. It's your pain of losing that person being with you. And you have to be able to overcome that. Otherwise, you just suffer your whole life.
I've spent a good deal of my life with Star Wars, so I've heard a lot about the franchise as time went on and I got older. The most recurring thing I hear from people when they talk about Star Wars is how it's different, regardless of if that's being said in good context or bad. And yeah, those people are right. Star Wars has always been in a state of constant change and evolution. What it was in 1977 when A New Hope came out isn't what it was in 1999 when The Phantom Menace was released. And it definitely wasn't the same in 2015 when The Force Awakens came on the scene. And even though I haven't been a fan of Star Wars since 1977, mostly because I wasn't even born at the time, I did grow up with Star Wars, and I have been a fan since I was a little itty bitty chicken nugget. It's through that upbringing I was able to watch Star Wars evolve. But it wasn't until recently when I was talking with a friend that I realized how much Star Wars has changed. And by talking, I mean but yeah, I argue with them all the time. I know you're watching this video. What I realize is that just as Star Wars went from a standalone film to a trilogy, to a saga, and eventually a franchise, it's grown beyond that as well. You could almost call it its own genre, its own culture. We have more Star Wars available to us than we've ever had before. Not just the episodic saga films, but the anthology spin-off movies, animated shows, live-action shows, specials, comics, novels, YouTube shorts, a theme park, manga, and even anime. That's right, we have reached the point in time where folks are going to be arguing about Best Girl.
Why are we still here?
There is a literal day dedicated to Star Wars. At this point, Star Wars has become its own animal even in the context of most franchises. This is ironic because, if I'm being honest, Star Wars isn't the box office or cultural juggernaut it used to be anymore. The last Star Wars film that I can honestly say that left a positive cultural impact was The Force Awakens.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
Love or hate the movie, you would be lying if you told me you did not hear about The Force Awakens. Most people I see in my day-to-day life, if it's the bus driver, a taxi driver, an Uber, a Lyft, the clown that mugs me down the street. Now, that might be the films, of course, but the shows have started to leave more of an impact. But that's a discussion for another day, and I'm sure my comment section will probably make that discussion for today. But hey, the more you guys comment, the better it is for the algorithm. So, just go comment.
Please.
There's been a saying tossed around on social media for a while, ever since the divisive reception of a certain movie that came out in 2017.
The Last Jedi!
And that saying is, all Star Wars is good, which was created in the aftermath of that certain movie that came out in 2017.
The Last Jedi!
And let's just say that motto has been pushed to its limit and even abandoned by certain parties. Ironically, the most notable people that have abandoned that saying has been many fans of The Last Jedi who have used it the most as time went on.
Ironic.
Now, why did many fans of The Last Jedi abandon the motto that many of them coined?
Rey Skywalker.
Well, because there's too much Star Wars to blanket under one general statement of predetermined praise. There's also the fact that some of those people really only knew or considered Star Wars from a certain capacity. So when faced with a Star Wars story they didn't like, a certain Star Wars story that came out in 2019 called The Rise of Skywalker, they realized their blanket term couldn't really be considered to all of Star Wars. And that brings a really interesting point to the conversation. No matter what anyone says, no matter how positive someone is, there will always be something even the most positive fan isn't going to like. Maybe it's a choice a character made that they don't agree with. Maybe it's the way a character's story ended. This was the reality many fans of The Last Jedi had to face when watching The Rise of Skywalker. And ironically, 2 years prior, this was the reality many fans of The Force Awakens had to face watching The Last Jedi. Yeah, that was a fun time. But on the reverse side, there's always something even the most bitter and burnt out fan will find something to love.
X-Wing.
One X-Wing? Great. We're saved.
May the Force be with you.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Maybe it's a show returning to finish its untold story. Maybe it's the return of a hero to their former glory. Or maybe it's two great actors being able to reprise their most iconic roles one last time.
Can you ask me in front of all of these people, all of these witnesses, can you please ask me, am I going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again?
Ewan,
Yes?
are you going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is the most bitter fans will find something to love and the most positive fans will find something to hate, because yeah, that's how things work. And I'll be honest, when I see that, even if I disagree with their opinions, I actually respect it a little more, because yeah, as a fan, you can't love or hate everything. There's always going to be something you're going to love and there's always going to be something you're going to dislike. And if you say, I just hate everything or I just love everything, I'm just not going to see that as realistic. We are all going to find something we dislike or love in Star Wars. And if you tell me you don't, I'm just going to consider that you're lying. But hey, that's just me. Over the last couple of years, we've seen Star Wars take on mighty highs and divisive lows. And where some people see Star Wars as losing its way, and you can insert whatever reason you think there is, I'm sure you're gonna find it anyway. I think of it more as Star Wars going through an identity crisis, more than anything. And to understand why I think that, we need to talk about some cold hard facts first. The George Lucas version of Star Wars is an entirely different animal than anything else we have seen or anything else we will see in Star Wars. Mostly because whether or not you want to admit it or not, when George Lucas ran Star Wars, it was based on what the filmmaker wanted. It was just this guy trying to bring his story to life. So anything he approved or denied, it was always from the perspective of, well, the filmmaker, the storyteller. Whereas Disney it's a company, it's a studio, it's Suits. As much as they can dress up that they're family friendly and they're this, they're that, blah, 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 it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, Disney does things based on profit margin, based on market research, group testing, and all that other crap. It's just Suits. They don't care about the story, they care about the green.
I don't know, I was sort of ahead of my time with Red Tails. You know, an all-black film.
But you, the only person who could have got that made someplace.
Well, I paid for it myself.
Daniel Yellow said that.
They wouldn't distribute it, they wouldn't make it, they wouldn't advertise
Because
it.
of racism or because of what?
They just said, the market research says nobody will go to that movie.
There you go.
And in Europe, nobody will go see
But
it.
market research said nobody would go to Star Wars. Market research may have said no one.
Well, but this one was.
Okay.
We know there is a certain now. Over time, a lot of these issues that were just becoming, they were dimly aware of them, have become institutionalized. Now they know that movie will do well in France. This movie will do well in Denmark. This movie you can't do in Asia. And they got their markets, they know how much of the share they get, and they do their little analysis, and then they say, well, we will or will not make the movie. It has nothing to do with what I do, which is make a movie, something that people can enjoy.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with that. I made money in spite of myself. And I think I made money because I didn't care. I didn't care whether it was a hit or not a hit. I wanted to make this movie as a movie. And that's the thing that they won't do. And that they can't do it. It's not in their constitution to do that. You know, I have a fiduciary duty to come up with a thing. I got it 10% a year, my stockholders. That's why I would never go public. And that's why I said, I'm not going to be beholden to anybody. And that's why even now with the company, when I sold it, one of the reasons I sold it was I was starting to make movies that were more personal and were obviously losing a lot of money. And I said, I really can't do this much more because the company will be dragged down. And I had 2,000 employees. So I had people to think about. So I said, the best way to handle this is to sell it and then take the money, put it in a bank account. I call it my yacht because a lot of my friends have yachts. I said, I'm not going to buy a yacht, but I'll take the money that I would use to have a yacht and I'll put it in a bank account.
Right.
And I will use that to make movies that I know are experimental, that I have no way of knowing whether they'll work or not, but I want to see if they work. And that means I don't have to show them to an audience. I don't have to have people.
So when are we going to see that movie?
You're not. You might.
That's not to say George Lucas didn't care about making money because, well, yeah, no matter what, you're going to have to make some return to keep wanting to tell the stories you're going to want to tell. At the end of the day, many legend stories were George Lucas approved, but even in that context, if George Lucas was to make his intended sequel trilogy, it would have had to override a good deal of legend stories that was set after Return of the Jedi. And what he would have done is completely different from what Disney did with Star Wars as well. I don't care what anyone says. Folks have to realize that George just wanted to tell the story of the son, the father, and eventually the grandchildren. So for those expecting George's sequels to be about the heir to the Empire trilogy, it was never going to happen. Likewise, George Lucas would not have made The Force Awakens, definitely not The Last Jedi, and definitely not The Rise of Skywalker. That's not me saying George Lucas hates the sequel trilogy or loves the sequel trilogy.
I think you have to have a thick enough skin to cope with the criticism. I'm very self-critical, and I have a lot of friends that I trust and who are film directors and writers and people in my profession. I trust them to be extremely critical, but I trust their opinion, and their opinion is thoughtful, knowledgeable, and I also know them personally, so I know the psychological slant they're putting on it. I know what their tastes are, and I can say, well, that's great for them, but that's not great for me, because most criticism, when it comes to movies, there's technical criticism, which is extremely helpful, but you're only going to really get that from your peers. I've discovered that most critics themselves are cinematically illiterate. They don't really know much about movies. They don't know the history, they don't know the technology, they don't know anything. So for them to try to analyze it, they're lost. But your friends usually know what they're doing, and they can critique the technical side of things to say this doesn't work, you're putting the cart before the horse, this kind of stuff. And then the rest of it is what you like. It's a personal, it's in the eye of the beholder. I like this movie, I don't like this movie.
At the end of the day, no one really knows on our level what George Lucas loves or hates.
There's a lot of movies that are badly made that I love. There's a lot of movies that are just beautifully made, but I don't like them.
Mostly because George Lucas is signed to an NDA, where he legally is not allowed to comment on the sequel trilogy. George Lucas once said that if he made his sequel trilogy, some people would have hated it. And honestly, I can believe that. Mostly because, again, George Lucas was not going to be adapting Heir to the Empire into a sequel trilogy. George Lucas was going to override a good deal of the Legends EU set after Return of the Jedi. Do I think George Lucas's version of the sequel trilogy would have been worse than what we got? No. I think it would have been objectively more coherent and worked better with the story and themes of his past 6 films. Because at the very least, George Lucas would have treated his sequel trilogy like a part of his own story, while Disney love or hate the sequel trilogy, which is what I want to stress. It doesn't matter if you love or hate it, I'm not going to attack you for either reason. Disney did themselves no favors by completely mishandling almost every single aspect of the sequel trilogy that can't be described on a technical level with the visuals. It got to the point where even J.J. Abrams was wishing he was able to do what he wanted to do, and that Disney had planned out these films before hiring each individual director. That being said, the fact that so much time had passed since the prequel trilogy, and there were so many stories set after Return of the Jedi, and that George would have overwritten a good deal of those stories to make his sequel trilogy, yeah, some people would have been pissed at the sequel trilogy regardless. You have some people who believe the story of Star Wars should have stopped with the prequel trilogy, or some believe it should have just stopped after Return of the Jedi and that was it. You even have some people who believe that Star Wars should have just been one movie and just remained Star Wars, the original name of A New Hope that came out in 1977. That's not even counting the people in the media who have made it their mission to bag on George Lucas for everything he did on the prequel trilogy. My personal feelings on the matter are that while there are many legend stories set after Return of the Jedi that I do like, I would be lying if I said I didn't want to see George's plans for his intended sequel trilogy, even if it was just in animated form or what if story, because again, I just want to know. I like George Lucas Star Wars, but that's me. I understand if some people don't want to see it. I understand if it can't even be made because again, these are concepts and ideas and not fully realized scripts. And before we go any further, no one tell me that George Lucas was obsessed with the Skywalker blood supremacy. You sound stupid. George Lucas created plenty of characters in Jedi that were unrelated to the Skywalkers, but still important to each story with his name on it. You had Obi-Wan, Yoda, Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, Palpatine, the entire prequel Jedi Order, and even Ahsoka. But this video isn't about what George Lucas would or wouldn't have done. Rather, it's why Star Wars has changed. Forever. As much time as I've spent criticizing certain choices Disney Star Wars has made, I would be lying if I said there weren't things in Disney Star Wars that I didn't love, that there weren't stories, characters, or even moments that left me speechless, emotionally invested, or in awe. And it's only recently when I stopped looking at Star Wars from a singular perspective that everything started to click. Star Wars as a franchise, as a brand, a culture if you will, is changing and trying to find its own place among this wildly diverse community of different opinions, tastes, and ambitions and desires that this community wants to see from the franchise. As much as some people would like to all pretend the fan base is just broken into 2 parts, the people who love everything with the brand name Star Wars and the people who hate everything or have complaints, that's not how it is. Regardless of if someone's been with the franchise since 1977, or if they just picked it up during the never-ending nightmare where some of us have been locked inside our homes for
a long time.
What someone is going to care about when it comes to Star Wars has nothing to do with their age, gender, race, or political belief. There are people well over 40 who are madly in love with a good amount of Disney Star Wars. Some people are still teenagers who are more interested in playing the Old Republic than reading anything to do with the High Republic. One of my personal follows on Twitter, a black woman, was a little girl when the original trilogy came out, and she loved Carrie Fisher's Lair, and as an adult, she loves John Boyega's Finn. But she still criticizes aspects of The Force Awakens. She criticizes the hell out of The Last Jedi, and she has complaints about The Rise of Skywalker. But she still wishes for a better future for Star Wars. And many people are like this. Many people aren't like this. Some are the opposite. So trying to group up Star Wars fans based on their physical appearance for the sake of labeling isn't going to bring us any honest results. If anything, it's just going to continue to muddy the waters. There are black, indigenous people of color who don't like parts or all of the sequel trilogy for their own personal reasons. Sometimes it's based on the writing. Sometimes it's because of Disney's immoral treatment of their cast of color and the hyperfixation Disney and the fandom gave to the two sole white leads in the sequel trilogy. Or sometimes they find lots of plot holes or inconsistent writing between each of the sequel trilogy movies that make them all pretty incoherent. And sometimes it's just got to do with personal taste. And then sometimes you'll find these white guys who love the sequel trilogy, love everything about it. Lots of the people you usually see who are praising it on YouTube and Twitter are actually white, just like some people who dislike it. And then lots of people who like or dislike it aren't white, because Star Wars has always had more fans than just white men. And the more we ignore that, the more we silence all the other voices who want their opinions heard and they want to be seen. As I've said, there's no such thing as a set look, a set appearance for who likes what in Star Wars, for who loves Star Wars. So that brings us back to where we began. And to understand why Star Wars has changed, why it's always changing, you have to understand Star Wars means different things to different people. And the reason behind that is due to the fact that Star Wars has been a lot of different things to different people through the generations. It's been a story that focused on family, biological, adopted, or found families. It's been a story that focused on lore and settings, building up conflicts and events based on world building surrounding Star Wars. It's been a story that focused on character and narrative, above all else, and things like world building and lore took a back seat to the personal stories and relationships the characters had. And sometimes it's been a story that only focused on the spectacle and subjective investment someone could have, stories that really only focused on impressive visuals and relatable concepts. And sometimes it's been all of those things combined. So the big question now isn't even what's next for Star Wars, because if I'm being honest, and some fans looked over the horizon, they would notice that there are stories coming to Star Wars that are promising every single type of Star Wars fan what they want, for the most part, because some people are always not going to get what they want. For example, you have Star Wars Acolyte, for dark side worshippers who want to explore original characters that have never been seen in Star Wars before. No show characters, no Skywalker saga characters, completely original. Then you got Star Wars Visions, an anthology series anime set within its own canon. The Kenobi series, which is dedicated to making prequel trilogy and original trilogy fans cry tears of blood and depression. The Andor series for folks who want more from the Rogue One era of Star Wars. The Book of Boba Fett for those who want more of the criminal underworld of Star Wars expanded upon. The Ahsoka show, which is ironically actually the first time Ahsoka's been the actual protagonist of a Star Wars story instead of part of an ensemble cast where she got a lot of screen time, which is, it's interesting. Please tell me you're ending her story already, it's been forever. Then you have the High Republic, which isn't my personal flavor, I kind of find it a little too vanilla, but it's all original characters and original story, set outside of the context of the Skywalker saga, the movies, the shows, or anything. So for those who keep asking for new characters and new this and original that, there it is. Please stop complaining about the Bad Batch, I'm actually enjoying it. For those who want more movies, we have Patty Jenkins's film. Then we have Taika Waititi's Star Wars film, which is probably never coming out the way this guy keeps taking on new projects. There's no lack of diversity in terms of different content coming to Star Wars. It just really all depends if people want to watch that content, because some people want it to be the movies that gives them the story, some people want it to be the shows, some people want it to be the games, and some people want it to be the EU. And I get that, but you know, if you're saying you want this and X is this, but you want it to be Y, that's not really everyone's problem, that's more of a you problem. Trust me, I want things that are not coming to Star Wars, and well, I kind of just gotta accept that. The real big question here is, what do you want from Star Wars? And it's not something you can give a general statement on like new characters or an original story. Let me ask you this. When it comes to Star Wars, what do you want? What do you care about? What does your heart tell you? And in asking you that question, I guess I should ask myself that question. Friends, I started my YouTube during the madness of the lockdown, mostly because I was going crazy from not seeing friends and family for months upon months, but also because I wanted to talk to someone, to talk to all of you about something that has been with me since I was a little kid, and what I've wanted from it has changed as I've changed. Originally, I just wanted more Star Wars in general. Then I wanted it to reflect where my mind was at the time, or this game, or that book, or whatever. And honestly, after watching the sequels, rise and fall, the boom of the shows, and just learning what goes into these stories, to these productions, and how things have been handled, the most I want from Star Wars is just for it to be confident in what it's doing and right the wrongs that it's done. And if I'm being honest, there are a lot of wrongs that need to be righted, especially in regards to how Disney Lucasfilm handled the sequel trilogy, its cast, its crew, and yeah, even the fans. I won't get into it. If you followed this channel for any bit of time, you know what I'm talking about. And if not, well, there's a hell of a lot of videos I've made already talking about the subject. So, go click them, go watch them, but that's not the point. I don't think Disney ruined Star Wars, but I also don't think they've made Star Wars better than it ever was. Not by a long shot. I think they made Star Wars more accessible to more people, but that's different from making it better. Disney Star Wars has done some good, it's done some bad, and right now it's got a chance to do something new. It's got a chance to be better than it ever was, than it is right now. What makes good Star Wars has nothing to do with the Jedi, the Sith, cameos, original characters, returning characters, but it has to do with finding a story that works, committing to it, and actually giving it time to be created. The future of Star Wars can be so many things, and even if you don't believe that, you do have the power to make sure that does happen. All you have to do is keep talking, keep trying to be a reasonable person, and be honest about what you like or what you dislike. Star Wars will always be in a state of constant change, and so will we. And all we can do is push for things to get better. I don't think all Star Wars is good, and I don't think you need to love everything about Star Wars. But I do think if you love Star Wars, then you're a Star Wars fan. And your opinion matters, and what you want out of Star Wars matters. And I hope you get what you want one day. I truly do. Hello friends, I hope all of you are doing well. Thank you for sticking around to the ending of this video. It's been an interesting journey this last year on YouTube, and honestly I owe it all to you. Every commenter, every viewer, and everyone who has subscribed to this channel. Thank you so much. And I hope this channel can grow and be better than it was yesterday. I can't really say how many uploads I'm going to do a week. I've tried multiple times to make a schedule, but then I realized I can't really say how many uploads I'll do a week. But starting this coming week, we will at least get 2 videos a week. At least. Streams are finally coming back, and I'll be doing them every single weekend, so no matter what, we're gonna get at least 2 uploads and 1 stream a week. Currently, I'm working on my channel's Discord server, a Reddit page, and most importantly, a website to keep things more organized and keep in touch with you guys. Also, a little thing I'm going to be doing on my website, if you're another small content creator and you get in touch with me, or you've got, say, your artwork you want to promote, or a fundraiser you're trying to promote, just let me know, and I'm going to be putting it on a Signal Boost page on my website, just to help some people out. If you're ever looking for any updates on what I'm doing or currently obsessing over, go over to Twitter and give me a follow at TheFirstOkiro. I apologize for the random tweets you will see, but yeah, you're gonna see some weird shit. The next installment of my sequel trilogy rewrite should be coming up in the next couple weeks. It's been a project that I've been talking about for a while, and I keep saying a couple weeks, but I really want to get this right, and I don't want to put out something that's going to be doo-doo butter, so yeah. For those who like my work and want to support me even further, and let me just say, any support is greatly appreciated, so even if you're just a viewer, a subscriber, or a commenter, I really appreciate you. But for everyone else who wants to support me more, I've got a Patreon available that helps fund this channel and make sure I can keep producing content. So, for just $1 a month, you can become a Patreon and greatly help this channel like these special people right here. I'd also like to give a special thank you to these great people: Geena H, Hiroko M, JC, Lee Petit Loop Rogue, I am so sorry if I messed up that name, Molly, Prole, M, HD, Marine. Thank you, my friends, for your continued support of this channel. Literally, you guys mean so much to me and this channel. All of you, because without you, I don't got anything. It means the world to me. It really does. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. But it looks like our time is at an end, my friends. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.